Home buyers have gained leverage in most U.S. cities compared to 1 year ago, but some areas are becoming a buyer's market in which they have an advantage over home sellers. In order to figure out which direction we're headed, especially regarding home prices, it is extremely important to examine how many houses are for sale now compared to 2019. In general, the cities that have a rapid increase of housing inventory from 5 years ago are areas in which home prices are softening. Conversely, metros that have a shortage of houses for sale still are experiencing big increases in home prices. Therefore, in today's video, I'm going to share the cities in which buyers have a clear advantage, and also conversely, the cities in which home sellers are actually still in control. I have a lot to share in today's video. If you guys get any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing as well. I appreciate you guys so much. Let's begin. This article is from ResiClubAnalytics.com, link below for that. It says 54 of the nation's 200 largest housing markets are now above pre-pandemic levels. It was only 17 markets last year. So around 1/4 of the 200 biggest cities across the United States have more houses for sale this October compared to 2019. It was only 17 markets 1 year ago. The U.S. housing market is gradually recovering from the inventory depletion that occurred during the pandemic housing boom. We all know that we had a record low level of inventory back in early 2022 and also for much of 2021, but the housing market has gradually improved overall. So according to Resi Club, it says at the height of the pandemic housing boom, housing demand was so fierce that houses sold so quickly they barely had time to register as active inventory. So you list your house for sale in Sacramento, for example, it was very common to get 6 offers within a matter of days, and the house is sold in less than 1 week. So it barely got registered as inventory by the end of the month. So for example, in October 2021, for the US as a whole, there was just under 566,000 houses for sale. That was a staggering 53% below the 1.2 million we should be seeing that we saw back in October 2019. In October 2021, every single one of the nation's 200 largest metros had fewer houses for sale compared to October of 2019. So out of the 200 biggest cities, not a single one had more houses for sale compared to 2019. But that has been improving on a national level. So for example, this October, there was 953,000 homes for sale. Now we're only down by 21% compared to 2019. So take a look at this. Here is a look at inventory levels over the past several years. So obviously in October 2020 and 2021, every single one of these 200 biggest metros had fewer houses for sale compared to October of 2019. Then fast forward to October 2022, there was 14 metros and 186 had fewer inventory. October 2023, it increased to 17, but now we saw a big increase. Now there's 54 metros that had more inventory compared to October of 2019, and now only 146 that are below those levels. It goes on to say here that most of the housing markets where active listing inventory or houses for sale that have climbed back above pre-pandemic levels are markets in the Sun Belt that are were particularly hot during the pandemic housing boom. So for example, Huntsville, Alabama, inventory levels this October was 85% higher than October of 2019. Let me share that with you guys right here. So Huntsville has the biggest increase of inventory from 5 years ago, up by 85% at the 200 biggest metros. The 3-year change, pretty drastic there, up by 406% from 3 years ago, also up by 46% year over year. Here's another way to look at this, because for the US as a whole, we have 21% fewer homes for sale compared to October 2019. In contrast, Huntsville, Alabama, up by a whopping 85%. And the gains over the past several years is eye-opening compared to the national average. So for example, the US as a whole was up by 30% from 4 years ago, but Huntsville is up by a whopping 166%. Therefore, let's have a look at what's happening right now regarding home prices according to Redfin's data center. In Huntsville, Alabama, it's down by 5% year over year. And also it's lower than 2022 as well. So home prices in Huntsville, Alabama are at least a 2-year low right now. At 317,000, the peak was more or less this year back in July when we're at 345,000. At that time, it was up by 3%. Now it's down by 5% year over year. So again, areas that have a big increase of inventory over the past several years are areas in which home prices are going down or they are softening greatly as well. So let's take a look at this rest of this list, and that's this right here. So a lot of these areas I was making videos about back in 2020 through 2021 that they saw a big increase in prices and demand due to the pandemic. So again, Huntsville, Alabama is leading the nation with the biggest increase. By the way, this is sorted by the 5-year. So Huntsville is in the number 1 spot. After that is Killeen, Temple, Texas, up by 75%. Look at that, 4 years up by 310%. After that, we have Lubbock, Texas, up by 72%. Punta Gorda, Florida, up by 68%. Other metros as well. Colorado Springs, Colorado. That was another metro in which home buyers moved there right after the pandemic. Same goes for Waco, Texas, and of course Austin, up by 40%. Pretty crazy there that the year-over-year change there is only up by 19%. 2 years up by 21% compared to Huntsville, Alabama. Basically 4 times that, up by 78% over the past 2 years. 1 year up by 46% compared to only 19% in Austin. But still up greatly over the past several years. Of course, we have Memphis, we have Orlando, Denver, Cape Coral, Florida. That was one area in which prices were absolutely skyrocketing in 2020 and 2021. We have Spokane, Washington up greatly as well. And then also San Antonio, Tucson, Phoenix, Nashville, New Orleans, etc. Here's a map I found on ResiClubAnalytics.com looking at inventory this October from 5 years ago. In general, as you guys can see, much of the Midwest as well as the Northeast has a lack of houses for sale. By the way, the dark red is down by more than 50%. In contrast, gains over 40 to 50% are in dark green, which is much of Texas and Florida, for example. But again, much of the Northeast and the Midwest is down greatly from 5 years ago. So let's have a look how this translates to home price changes over the past 1 year. This is also according to ResiClubAnalytics.com for September. They haven't posted October's stats just yet. But as you guys can see, much of the Midwest and the Northeast have big gains in prices compared to 1 year ago. But much of Texas, Louisiana, North Dakota, and some other pockets across the United States have a decrease in prices. Any area that's shaded in orange or red is in areas in which prices are down. Areas in blue are areas in which prices are up from 12 months ago. Going back to Resi Club's report, it says among the 200 largest metros, the tightest housing markets in which sellers have an advantage over home buyers are still located for the most part in the Northeast and the Midwest. Here are the top 50 markets in which sellers have an advantage. So number 1 spot, based on the 5-year decrease, down by 74% in Bridgeport, Connecticut area. Then we have Hartford, Connecticut, Peoria, Illinois, Erie, Pennsylvania, much of the Northeast and the Midwest, as you guys can see. Something I found interesting when looking at these metros is that much of these were not pandemic boom towns, whereas much of these markets in which inventory is up greatly from 5 years ago were the areas in which home prices were absolutely skyrocketing over the past several years. Here's a really good snapshot looking at the comparison, looking at the national average compared to Connecticut and then, of course, Huntsville, Alabama. So for the U.S. as a whole, we're down by 21%, but Connecticut or Bridgeport, Connecticut is down by 74%. They're actually down for the 2-year, 3, 4, and 5-year, and only up by 8% year over year, whereas the nation as a whole, we're up by 29%. There's a pretty big delta here, especially looking at Huntsville, Alabama, up by 85% compared to a 74% decrease in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Big decreases there, but huge increases in Huntsville, Alabama. Now I add in Sacramento, California. Obviously, I work here as a real estate agent with my team. It's on par with the national average, down by 21%, much different than Alabama, up by 85%. In Sacramento, we're up greatly from 1 year ago, up by 43%. But looking at the 2 year, we're flat, whereas the national average is up by 27%. It just goes to show how every housing market's different. So to summarize this for you guys, housing markets that have returned to pre-pandemic norms regarding inventory are experiencing softer home price growth, or in some areas like Huntsville, they're down compared to 2 years ago. In contrast, housing markets where inventory remains far below pre-pandemic norms are experiencing big increases in prices, like much of the Northeast and the Midwest over the past 24 months. However, what are you seeing in your neck of the woods? Are you seeing home prices increasing still? Or are you seeing home prices falling because of a big increase of the amount of houses for sale? Please leave me a comment below. I appreciate you guys so much for watching today's video. Please like and subscribe. Of course, share any of my videos on your social media. Hope you have an awesome day, and we'll see you next video.